to kind of talk a little bit about kind of what you've seen today that works, what you'd like to see, directions that we can go and sort of do our teacher hint thing now, if you guys are up for that. So talk to me. Let's start with what are you looking for with obviously inexperienced technicians. What are you looking for to show you potential, or to show you that they may have they may be a good fit for your program?
Process.
Yeah. So what does that look like from a presentation standpoint?
Yeah, some of the students are very good at sharing their research materials, sketches, process as they start to build something. And that's the kind of thing I think most of us would like to see. You know, seeing the finished product is important too. Seeing the work that they've done in productions is great. But those students that really stand out to me are the students that are showing us their research, their sketches. You know, it can be messy. It doesn't have to look, their entire presentation doesn't have to, all the pieces don't have to look beautiful. They have to, I think they need to know that we can decipher the finished product, the beauty of the finished product from that process work. And it can be scribbles on lined paper. That's fine. I love to see that. Even if it's a stage manager, I love to see, you know, the notes that got scribbled on a piece of paper and then got translated to a rehearsal report or meeting minutes or something like that.
Also for stage management, I like to see where they met a challenge, they weren't sure what to do with it. And I mean, like, we can teach standard formatting later. I love watching how they chose to organize what the show was right in front of them. I mean, paperwork and documentation and all of that, like any of that they, especially the ones that they have created because they figured it out themselves. I love to see that.
And I'm going to say, go ahead.
Thanks, Brian. I have heard a lot of people talk with great confidence and facility about their technical know-how and about some of the challenges they've overcome. I would love to hear more people talking about the why and the art of the choices they make, and to talk about their design motivations.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I want to see what makes them curious. And it doesn't have to be theater. And I think that's one of the big things. If they do photography, even if it was just a phone, or if they keep sketchbooks, anything that clues us into how they approach problem solving or approach creativity is really fair game, and I would love to see. Something else I would suggest too is on their resumes, they don't have to necessarily know, but being able to jot down the couple areas that they're interested in, so that we have an idea, because several of the kids have talked about an area that they want to explore, but their portfolio is not necessarily laid out in that format yet.
One of the other things for lighting that I love to see is if they have any painting experience or rendering experience or anything like that, to see how they actually see light in the world around them. And that would be, I think that's something to communicate as well, is the artwork can be just as important as the theater things as well, if there's any students that have a foot in kind of both worlds at the schools.
I will say for stage management too, something that occurs to me is that I'd love to see a picture just of this, just to see the scope of the show, right? Like size, just so even though they feel like they're not a designer, so why would they put a picture of like what the final set is or whatever? But I would love to see the students on the set with the lights, so that I can just see like, this is the kind of show that ultimately I was responsible for organizing.
I would like to hear how the script affected their design. Nobody yet has talked about the guidance they received from the script itself.
Donald, I'd like to say that I agree very much with Brian in the sense that you know, there were a few people that presented stuff that was well aside from any theater projects that they were working on, which I greatly appreciated. anything from an art class, anything that shows creativity is really helpful, because so many of these students will probably end up in a completely different category than they're thinking about right now. So just seeing the things that interest them and how they put them together, even if it's like that incredible young woman who does Lego videos. I mean, it's fascinating. So I think that's a really I think you should encourage them to put in anything that is artistic, regardless of field.
So let me ask this
Donald,
question. Yeah, go ahead.
one of the things that I noticed today and I noticed last year is that the students that are coming across at this audition have really strong interview skills. A lot of it comes across in their artwork or in their production shots and all that other stuff. But what I find at a lot of places is that when they go to interview, they can't engage. They don't make eye contact. They don't they don't answer the questions in a sort of energetic and engaged way. And that makes such a big difference when you're, sort of selling yourself to a college is, I want to come study with you because I'm excited and I am passionate about the thing that I'm passionate about. And I think that across the board, the students at your auditions do a really good job of preparing themselves to sort of promote themselves in that arena.
Well, thank you. So let me ask you this question. Just because typically at high schools, there are you're not doing a ton of shows a year, so there's not a lot of design possibilities out there. Is there anything that's too small to go into a portfolio?
Classwork is great.
Classwork is
Classwork
fine.
is great. I mean, at this point, a lot of us, I think, are having to rely on some unrealized. I mean, that's what we're, I think, probably also talking to our own students about, like the idea of including unrealized designs, because that's where we are right now. So include the classwork, and really to same thing that kind of Brian and Christopher were just saying, except not necessarily creative. For me, looking for stage managers, I love the kid who included her spreadsheet for DECA. Like any of those kinds of things that go into that show me that you know how to sort of organize and communicate, like all of that plays into, that shows me that you are playing with the right kinds of building blocks for me.
Yeah,
I
I'll,
only
I'll
have one
second that and
concern.
say that I really liked when Kyla showed us her Halloween costumes.
Oh, they were great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Her hair, the ears that she made out of her hair, I loved so much about that.
Because it doesn't just show us what they do, it shows us who they are. And
Yeah.
I really like that.
And how they
And-
think.
And the person that had the robotics project too, I've seen that at a couple other conferences too. It just gives us such a glimpse into who they are as humans, which I think is something that that there's a few students that don't grasp that element of the interview.
And I think that students sometimes don't realize that they can be doing unrealized projects on their own. So if you have a student who's a sophomore or junior who may want to be a set designer or a costume designer, encourage them to find a play that they're attracted to and do some preliminary drawings, like create on projects that aren't necessarily for a classroom, because those fit into a portfolio perfectly well and may express more about what they see in sort of their style.
Kind of what Matt was saying about like script analysis, like even if that's what they're doing, if they're working on analyzing a script, I mean, just even some of the, like, just to show us that, because that's where we all start anyway, is script analysis. Like that's great.
Yeah, and it seems that, when they do those classroom projects, that's where you get the deeper dive into script analysis, into research, into writing, because they don't have to because most of these kids are also building their shows, painting their shows, they've got to realize it as well as designing it.
And ultimately too, from a student standpoint, the first things that they're going to do coming into most programs is it's script analysis, it's those base classes. Their base success is going to be on, can you do those building blocks before they may or may not even get to some of the more specialized, like scenic, lighting, those particular areas.
Yeah, one of the notes I wrote down is the people who have resonated for me have been the ones that have told a story about them. If they themselves are involved in the portfolio, those are the ones that I'm like, you have some special skills happening at this point. And it's not just technical. It's not just the rudimentary of what we need to accomplish for this, but taking.
This is great, guys. I hope you don't mind if we share this publicly, because I think this is I think that was 10 minutes of the best portfolio building comments that I've ever seen. And it's just really nice that the through line to it's just really nice. And the popcorn piece of it's really nice. So thank you so much for doing that.